Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts. Today I pulled out the Simple Stories Just Beachy collection as well as this sketch from Scrapbook Generation. It is a sketch support sketch. I did take inspiration from a layout that Allison created using this sketch. Of course, it was a water theme, and she had listed the silhouette designs that you could pick up. I also picked those up because I wanted to make a very similar layout. I first started out with this really pretty orange paper that had the palm trees on it. You can see that I really tried to make sure that I cut the paper in the right direction because I wanted to make sure that those palm trees were in the right way on this layout. You may have noticed that this video is a little bit longer because I left all of this in. This layout was almost the death of me. I also cut out the pink paper that has like a wood grain on it, and then this kind of really busy paper with the florals. These photos are of my niece when she was at Typhoon Lagoon, which is a Disney water park, and I really laid heavily into the girly colors of this collection. If you guys remember, this is one of those layouts that was a part of my justification for buying this collection. Whenever I purchase new collections, I try to make sure that I have at least 5 layouts to complete so that I feel like I am getting my money's worth. I had recently pulled out this piece of cardstock from another layout that I was working on, and it didn't work for that layout, but the colors worked perfectly for this one. So I thought about matting my photos on it, but I wasn't too sure because I thought that the colors might clash with the colors of her little floaty. So I decided to go ahead and back my photos on the white cardstock background. Now I know sometimes I get comments about the fact that I am really good about saving paper by gutting paper. And that was a benefit in this particular layout because had I not gutted this paper, my layout would have been even thicker than what it ends up being. But we'll get there. So I'm going to use my layering guides to trim out my photos. I love these things. It gives me the opportunity to trim out photos in the middle of my paper, like I'm gutting my paper, and I get a perfect layer around my photos. I do have them linked below if you'd like to check them out. I'm going to use my T-square ruler to get the orange paper down, and I am going through adhesive pretty quickly, so I did have to change that out. I decided not to gut this orange paper because it was going to be on the background. I had this idea recently to rough up the edges around the sewing that I'm going to do on my layout. So I'm going to add some stitching, but I wanted to really have the sewing down and then have the paper lift up off the layout. So I'm actually going to do that with all 3 of the papers. So the orange palm trees, the pink wood grain, and then that really pretty floral paper. Of course, once I get the palm trees down, I do have to use some washi tape on the back of it, and I'm going to rough up the edges just a little bit more before I put this pink paper down. I did decide to gut this pink paper because I think this is probably my favorite paper in this collection. I love the subtle tones of that wood grain, and it's just such a pretty pink color. So I didn't want to waste that centerpiece. And again, I'm so glad that I did because later on you're going to see all my issues. In reading the blog from Allison, she said that she followed the sketch pretty closely in regards to the measurements of these 3 papers. When I was looking at the sketch, I thought that the papers were too close to the center. Like I wanted more paper and less white. So I did have to cut my pieces a little bit larger. That palm tree paper is 11 by 9. The pink paper is 10 by 7, and then the floral paper is 9 by 6. And then I just matted my 2 4x4 photos on that white cardstock. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the right-hand side of the layout. Of course, I roughed up the wrong edge of the paper. That is just one of the very minor mistakes that I make in this layout. And I was able to quickly fix that by just trimming off a very tiny piece and then roughing up the correct edge. I didn't want the center pieces, the pieces that met in the middle of this layout, to be roughed up. Once I get the palm tree paper down, I'm going to go ahead and add some washi tape to the back, and I did finish another roll of washi, which is always exciting because I still have a ton of it. I don't know why I ever purchase washi because it's not like I ever use it, but it is what it is. I forgot to rough up the edges of the floral paper as well, so I went ahead and did that, and then I'm going to adhere that piece down. Of course, using my T-square ruler to make sure that I have both pieces straight on both sides of the layout. So now I have the base of my layout done, and I am going to add some waves. I use this wave paper and I'm going to send it over to the silhouette. I am using the same cut files that Allison used in her layout. As I'm waiting for that to cut out on my silhouette, I am going to trim down the two photos. I wasn't sure which side of the photos that I wanted, so I did go ahead and just have a white border around all of them, but then I knew I could trim them down. I have two large wave pieces and then a bunch of water drops that I'm going to use on this layout. I did have a little bit of an issue. It didn't cut out properly at the very bottom, so I did have to use my X-Acto knife. But when I laid this piece of paper down, I immediately knew it was way too busy. I needed something else, and I wasn't liking it. I really thought that I could make it work, but I feel like the palm tree paper was just way too busy with this wave paper, and I just didn't like it. So I resorted back to that teal paper and took a look at that and thought maybe I could use that. I was still unsure because I felt like the teal paper might clash with her blue floaty, but I tried it out and I actually really like the way that it looks. So I cut these waves out again in this teal color. Maybe it's green. I'm not exactly sure. Aqua. I don't know exactly sure the color. It is a basil piece of paper, so it does have some texture on it, which I really like. And I didn't raise up the depth on my silhouette, so I did have to use my X-Acto knife on that. But when I lay this down on the layout, I knew exactly that it didn't clash with her floaty, and it worked so well with the orange palm tree paper. But then when I was looking at Allison's layout, I realized that she had done a double matte. So I thought maybe I could pull in the blue that is on her floaty. So I found this glitter paper and of course did the same thing and didn't bump up the depth on my silhouette. And this is thick paper because it is glitter cardstock. So I definitely had to use my X-Acto knife to get all of these pieces out. I didn't want to waste the paper, so I just took the time to use the X-Acto knife. Of course, when I was pulling it out, I tore it a little bit, but a little liquid glue and that was fixed right up. As you can see, I have another mistake for this layout. Can you see it? I cut out both of these waves in the exact same way. I thought that I was saving paper by flipping the wave over, and as you can see, it's not going to work. But I don't realize it yet, so I'm just happily gluing down the top piece, thinking that I am doing well, and then this is where I realized that it's not going to work. I thought, well, maybe I could flip over the teal paper, but it's textured, so that wasn't going to work either. So I had to recut the wave again on this glitter paper. Luckily, I had enough left on this one sheet, so it wasn't too bad. As I'm waiting for the silhouette to cut out, I decided that I'd go ahead and poke my holes on this wave piece. I am going to stitch on the wave piece before I put it on the layout for two reasons. One, going through two pieces of paper, especially one that is glitter cardstock, is a lot. If I had put it on my layout, I would have had to go through 4 additional pieces of paper, the floral, the pink, the orange, as well as my white cardstock. And that was just a lot. And then also by doing the stitching first, I'm going to be able to add some more dimension. I probably didn't need that with the mistakes I'm about to make. Past me, that's where I was currently living. The silhouette finished cutting out the other piece, so I put some liquid adhesive down on it and then went back to poking my holes on these waves. I did use the ruler for the straight edge, but then just freehand the rest of it. Of course, pulling out my threads so that I can match them up, I actually decided to go with a little bit darker of a color. Normally I try to do a tone on tone, but I felt like adding this darker thread just gave it a little bit more depth, and I love the way that it turned out. I'm going to start my stitching on camera, but of course do a majority of it off camera. I did slow the video down here so that you can see the stitching on the paper. So I have the orange on my palm trees, the lighter pink on the wood grain, and then I did do like a darker magenta pink on the floral. And then of course you can see that darker green on this wave paper. And at this point I am loving my layout. I did decide to rough up the edges a little bit more on each one of those papers. I really wanted to showcase that white core of the paper and really rough it up to make it kind of look like the waves at the beach, even though we're in the pool for this layout. But I just love the way that it looks. Of course, trimming off some of my threads in the back. And right when I am trimming off the threads, this is where I make the mistake. Can you see it? Do you see my mistake? I definitely see it. Past Lisa does not see it. She's going to continue to put this layout down as if nothing is wrong. She is loving the way that this layout's coming together. She even pulls out her fun foam so that she can make her wave very dimensional on the layout. She is just going to town and super excited about how this layout is going to turn out. Future Lisa is right now screaming at past Lisa saying, how can you not see that mistake? I go ahead and get my waves down, and I'm going to add my stamping block as well as some punches. These are probably my heaviest punches that I have because there is so much dimension with the fun foam as well as with all of the paper that I had pulled up on those edges. So I needed a lot of weight on those waves to make sure that they were down correctly. And using liquid adhesive was another one of my mistakes. I did have 2 additional photos that I wanted to add. I printed them out as 2x2, so they're super small. They're going to go over on the right-hand side of the layout. I added a white border to them using my layering guides just to make them stand out a little bit more. And now I have come back. I've let the layout dry overnight, and I'm going to add my additional wave and water pieces. And of course, I use a liquid adhesive on all of these little wave pieces. So I'm adding them down with the teal color as well as the blue glitter paper, really tying in both of those pieces. I'm taking inspiration from Allison's layout. She also had these water droplets and wave pieces on her layout. I am going to add a couple more than she did. I was really trying to complement that orange. I love the way that that orange stands out against the teal and the aqua of the waves. And I thought that by adding in a few additional pieces, it would really bring it in. You can see that I have that wave paper up at the top. I thought maybe I could use it, but in the end, it was just way too busy and I decided to just stick with the solid paper. I'm gonna embellish this. I'm not gonna add a ton of embellishments. I knew I wanted my title to be tropical vibes. Even though we're at Typhoon Lagoon, it's not really a tropical thing. I just feel like the paper lends to that title, as well as she is just super cute in these photos, and I just really like that title. And the fact that the title was orange, which played into the palm tree paper at the top of the layout. I did have to use some foam adhesive on some of it. So again, lots and lots of dimension because these are already foam adhesive title pieces. I'm adding it on top of foam adhesive on these waves. It's super thick. Over on the right-hand side, I added that floral piece that is a chipboard piece, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my 2x2 photos down. I ended up covering up a majority of the floral paper, so even though it was really busy, you don't see a whole lot of it. So that's why I did decide to bring in some of those florals so that you could tie in that paper. I added one next to my title as well, and then I just added some floral pieces to each one of the clusters that I'm building up. I'm looking through all of the embellishments, just trying to find things that work. I found this Fun in the Sun, which I thought was a cute little nod to us being at the water park. And then I'm just adding a few more florals to each one of the clusters. And then I pull out my enamel dots that come with this collection. They are the glittery enamel dots. I added 3 to each one of the clusters in the orange, pink, and teal color. And then I decided that I was going to do some more stitching on the little water droplets as well as the additional waves. So I'm going to go ahead and poke the holes in each one of these pieces. And at this point, when I am poking the holes, I realize my mistake. I immediately started crying. There was nothing else that could be done. I had to walk away from the layout. I was so upset with myself. I honestly thought about throwing it in the trash. I sent a picture to Nicole and she was like, "Oh, it's beautiful." I was like, "No, it's not. It is absolutely not beautiful. My palm trees are upside down." And her response was, "I'm actually over here laughing." So I had to walk away. She told me, walk away, let it go for the night, and figure it out tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day. So I did walk away, I let it go, but of course I couldn't go to bed. If you guys watched our very first episode of our podcast, you know that I don't let things go. I don't let things finish. I have to figure it out. So after watching TV a little bit, maybe enjoying an adult beverage or two, trying to figure out what I was going to do, this was my ultimate plan. Luckily, because I had roughed up the edges of those papers, it was not that difficult to cut out the white cardstock as well as the orange palm tree paper. So then I was left with my centerpiece. I started looking through my paper, hoping that I had enough paper to figure out the orange paper, but again, I only had one sheet. It wasn't going to be enough, so I knew that I couldn't do that. I have all of my solid or B-side paper in these envelopes from Amazon. I'll link them below. I absolutely love these things. I first purchased them for my Doodlebug Petite prints, and then I went back and purchased another set because I had all of these like B-side papers that were perfect, and I kept them all together. So I started looking through all of those. I first started out with the orange. I don't have a lot of orange. That made me realize that I probably need to pull out some more orange B-side paper and see where I can find them. I then thought, well, maybe I can go with a green. So I started looking through all of my greens. You can see that I have a ton of B-side papers. I really do love them and use them quite a bit. Couldn't find anything in the green. Then I went to my purples. That lighter purple was probably my favorite, but I really wanted an orange. So I thought maybe a yellow would work. Didn't have anything in that. Then I thought, well, maybe I'll look at my neutrals, which is like the grays, the creams, things like that. Couldn't find anything that would work in there either. So that's when I turned the camera off, because at this point, it's probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. I am extremely frustrated. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I really, really want orange. So I decided to pull out my Doodlebug Petite prints, and I pulled out all three of the color oranges that I have, which is tangerine, mandarin, and coral. I really like the coral, but it was a little too light, especially since I had that tropical in that darker orange. I really liked the tangerine in the florals, as well as the mandarin in the linen. I feel like the mandarin in the linen was a little bit closer to the tropical, but I really love the florals. And I had 2 pieces of the floral in the tangerine. I did not have 2 pieces of the floral in the mandarin. So I went with the tangerine. It was a little bit lighter, but I think that it still works. So I was still having issues with trying to get this palm tree paper up, because there are pieces that you can see underneath the waves. So you can still see the pink paper, you can still see the orange paper, and so I had to pull up another pieces. So at this point, that center piece of the layout is 5 pieces of paper, because I was only able to get the palm tree paper from the edge away. So I still have the palm tree paper as well as the white cardstock behind that piece. So I have white cardstock, palm tree, pink paper, floral paper, and my photos. It was so thick. I had to cut down the Doodlebug Petite prints, because at this point, my layout's not going to fit in my album because it is so thick. And on top of those 5 pieces of paper, I have fun foam on the waves, and then I have the foam adhesive on the tropical vibes. This thing is super, super thick. I do trim down the Doodlebug Petite print and get just this little tiny piece on the left-hand side and the top part of it. I didn't put it down right. I should have done the Doodlebug Petite print down first before I put down the wave paper, so I did have to pull it up. Luckily, I didn't make too big of an issue with it, but once I got it down, it looks better. and the florals are all over the place, so it doesn't have a direction. Luckily, I lined up the wave paper with the palm tree paper, so I didn't have to worry about the bottom part of it. And then here's where I'm going to make another mistake. I am trimming out the paper. I thought, well, I'll just use the piece that I cut out to cut out the piece that I need for the right-hand side of the layout. Do you see the mistake that I make? I'm thinking about it, and right here, I put my head down on the table. I want to cry even more. Not only have I messed this up, but this is the only piece of paper that I have. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. I thought maybe I could make it work turning it upside down. It wasn't big enough. I had already cut a piece. There wasn't enough of the piece to work. I thought I could make it work, but when I cut off the branding strip, it doesn't work. It's not big enough. At this point, I'm literally in tears on this layout. And I am just so frustrated with myself and not allowing myself to figure it out. You can see that there's just a little tiny piece that is over on the left-hand side. The issue that I have is that I do have another piece of paper. Even though these are all tangerine, if they're not printed in the same day, the inks are sometimes off. So this piece of paper is a little bit lighter than the left-hand side of the layout. But at this point, I'm just like, it is what it is. I'm just going to go with it. And I measure so many times before I cut this paper. The amount of times that I lay the top piece on top of this floral paper, every cut I do it because I'm like, I cannot mess this up again. I finally am getting to the point where I can get it down and it's going to be okay. I did post the palm tree paper that I had cut out over my Facebook group because that's the behind the scenes stuff that I really am trying to foster in my Facebook group. I want my Facebook group to be what you guys can't see on camera. I want to be able to share those really crazy moments with you guys. And so if you're not in my Facebook group and you want to see the behind the scenes stuff, make sure you go check it out. It is linked below. So I finally got the paper on the right-hand side of the layout done. I'm using some liquid adhesive to make sure that everything is down flat because there is so much texture and dimension and it's just not sticking to the layout. I did have to pull up the left-hand side of the layout because, like I said, you could see through the waves. And when I looked at the left-hand side, I could see the palm tree paper. So I had to pull it up, tear that off so that you can only see white paper down there now. Of course, using my brayer to try to move the liquid adhesive around. I did take the stitching offline, restitched the orange paper, roughed up the edges like I did with the palm trees, and now it's like it didn't even happen at all. I know it, you guys know it, but hopefully everyone else that's looking at my albums are not going to know that. I went ahead and added back down the embellishment pieces that I had to take up. That included that Fun in the Sun at the top, as well as the enamel dots. I did realize that I had that little foam flower over on the right-hand side. Past Lisa did not remember which side of the layout it went on, so it went to the left this time. I think that it's fine. Either way, it would have been fine on either side of the layout. I did have to use some liquid adhesive on my enamel dots to make sure that they stuck down. Luckily, I had printed out a bunch of different waves, so I was able to add a few more pieces down. As you can see, I didn't use the same pieces because the ones that I had to pull up did tear a little bit, so I couldn't reuse them, as well as I had already poked holes in them, so it wasn't going to work on the layout. I added the waves as well as the water drops back down to my layout, and I decided that I would add a couple more pieces. I did add one right next to the title, and then I'm going to add 3 up to the top where that cluster is on the right-hand side of the layout. I'm of course using the same piece of paper that I used for the waves to include that green aquily color as well as the blue glitter paper. And then I'm going to poke my holes and go off camera and stitch on this side of the layout as well. So as you can see, I still have that stitching around the edge, but now I have the stitching on the waves as well. I did realize that I forgot to stitch that blue glitter piece, but I will go off camera and do that as well. I love the stitching details on all of these water pieces. There wasn't a whole lot of embellishments to this, but that wave at the bottom really was the embellishment piece. I'm going to go ahead and add my journaling to this layout. The top part of this actually was the Phantasmic layout, and I ended up putting my journaling on vellum for that layout. So I'm just going to use the pieces that had the journaling as my back pieces for my journaling on this one so that I can stack it up, even though I probably didn't need any more dimension on this layout with these journaling pieces. My journaling says, Nevaeh is living her best life at Typhoon Lagoon, floating in style in her baby float with the canopy like her own little cabana. She was all smiles the whole time. She splashed, kicked, and soaked up every second. No doubt about it, this girl is a water baby through and through. I did decide to add my journaling on top of the photo because my mom is in the background of the photo. She's in the background of one of the other photos, so you can still see her there, but I felt like this would kind of take away from that distraction. All right, that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I hope you guys enjoyed all of these mistakes that I made on this layout because there were many, many mistakes. Hopefully you're here for it all and just enjoying the little bit of dumpster fire that is not normal for my video. I give a little nod to Nicole and how she does dumpster fires all the time. It is not for me. I was so very stressed out. But if you enjoyed this content, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.